Thank you very much for coming to the very first session at ATALM today. It's really an honor to be here and to talk about federal funding for native languages. This, of course, continues the theme of what started with this morning and talking about some of the activities that have already happened, including the Language Summit that occurred yesterday. So this is a wonderful opportunity, being in DC, to have really an esteemed panel of different funders. As you will see, today's speakers, we have a variety of us, actually 7 in total. So I will make my opening comments extremely quick so that this is really all about you gaining information from the funders, and then hopefully we will have enough time at the end for question and answer. So really consider this almost like speed dating, so to speak. Each person will be allotted 8 minutes to talk about their programs and about the type of funding that they have, and then we will go and definitely give you information about our programs that you have. My name is Sandra Narva. I'm a senior program officer at the Institute of Museum and Library Services, and I will be presenting information about the IMLS programs towards the end. I really don't have that much time, so I will allow each of our presenters to introduce themselves when they get up and speak. So without further ado, I will let you get started, and Mary from NEH is the first presenter.
Driver, oh, I pulled it out.
Okay. Okay, I think we can. I will let you do what you need to do.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. I just want to say thanks to Sandra and to IMLS for organizing this session. As you understand by now, there's been a lot of planning about incorporating sessions on native languages into the ATALM conference, and IMLS has really served as a lead on that, and Sandra has done a great job in pulling us all together to talk about federal funding for native languages. I am a program officer in the Division of Preservation and Access at the National Endowment for the Humanities, which is a small federal agency that works in the humanities. Here are a list of the kinds of activities that we do. We strengthen teaching and learning, we facilitate research in the humanities, and we preserve and provide access to cultural heritage along with a number of other activities. What are the humanities? You'll see here from our founding legislation from 1965 that the term humanities includes the study of language, both modern and classical, and linguistics, right at the top of the list there. Languages are fundamental to understanding human behavior. Our audience as an agency, eligible institutions include cultural institutions such as museums, archives, et cetera, tribal, state, and local governments are eligible institutions. Most of our awards go to institutions, only fellowships go to individuals. As I said, we are a small federal agency. We have a very small budget of $146 million, which is distributed across 4 main divisions of education, public programs, research, and preservation and access, as well as a number of additional special programs and initiatives. We are located at Constitution Center at L'Enfant Plaza, not too far from here, and we can always be found at www.neh.gov. Everything that I'm talking to you about today can be found on our website, so please take advantage of the website. I would like to just give you a quick overview of our programs. We don't have a lot of time here, and so I would encourage you to talk to a couple of other program officers from NEH are here. If you see us in the hallway, we also have an exhibit table, so feel free to talk to us about additional programs that we have, but I just wanted to give you an overview of, in the Division of Preservation and Access, we have a program that is a partnership with NSF, and my colleague Colleen Fitzgerald will talk to you a little bit more about that, Documenting Endangered Languages. Documenting Endangered Languages is a partnership that goes back to, with NSF that goes back to 2004. This was in recognition of the need to document the rapid loss of languages. There are 7,000 living languages. Over 3,000 of them can be considered endangered. And the two agencies have provided support for Native American language documentation between the two of us over the last 3 years. The deadline is coming up, as we just heard, on Tuesday, so get working on your proposals. Just an example here is Miami University did a dictionary of the Miami, Illinois language and created a digital edition of an 18th century French dictionary of Miami, Illinois, and this project is serving as the foundation for providing of educational materials, language learning materials for revitalization of the Miami, Illinois language. Also in the Division of Preservation and Access, we have preservation assistance grants, which are small grants up to $6,000 that go to small institutions. We have a special encouragement to tribes and tribal colleges. This is to undertake preservation assessments and purchase preservation supplies and offer education and training. And this pertains to language materials. The proposal can be for projects to undertake preservation assessments of any humanities collection, but among that humanities collections may be language materials. And here is an example of the Shawnee tribe that did a preservation assessment of its archives room that included historic photographs and language recordings. In our other divisions, we have humanities initiatives at tribal colleges. The deadline there is June 23rd, 2016. This creates opportunities for faculty members to study together. It can support collaborative projects in the humanities between applicant institutions and another institution. An example there is work that the American Philosophical Society did with a number of Ojibwe tribal colleges to work on the collections at the American Philosophical Society and then set up portals at those community colleges. Across other divisions, public programs, research, and digital humanities, we have a number of other areas that would support Native American language projects, media projects in the Division of Public Programs. Later this afternoon, Rising Voices, which is the documentary film that was done on the revitalization of the Lakota language, will be screened here. I think it's at the 3:45 session this afternoon, and that is a project that was funded through our public programs. Then we also have awards for faculty at tribal colleges, and you might also take a look at the Digital Humanities Startup Grants in the Office of Digital Humanities, where there is support for development of linguistic tools. So if anybody is involved in computational linguistics, that's a program to look at. I just want to give you an idea about what goes on when your project is reviewed. We have review panels. They are peer review panels, and one of the important tips that I'm going to point out here is to know the review process. So talk to people to find out what the review process is, because that's what's going to help you to put together an application. This is just sort of a composite here. Typical evaluation criteria for most of our projects is the project's significance for supporting research, education, or public programming in the humanities. You want to be thinking about methodology, how you're going to do it, be very clear about what it is that you want to do. Reviewers will be looking at these, at the content of your proposal against these evaluation criteria. What are the qualifications of the project staff, the project's plans for disseminating information about and providing access to grant products, et cetera. Successful proposals make a strong case for humanities significance. They describe collections in detail. They bring collections to life with discussions of exhibits, educational programs. They might relate stories to national events and topics. Again, this might not be in every single grant program that you're applying in, but generally these apply to most of our grant programs. Think about the team that you're pulling together. Reviewers would be looking at whether you're the right people to be doing this project. If you're proposing to do something, you want to make sure that you have everybody that has qualifications to be doing that. And look at the long-term sustainability. These are federal funds, and one of the things that reviewers are looking at is whether those federal funds are going to continue to serve as an investment in that project, and that the materials are going to continue to be available. I'm going to put a couple of slides up here, and there's going to be some repetition, and there's a reason for that repetition. Read the guidelines, read the guidelines, read the guidelines. Discuss with program officers beforehand. One of the things that I am always so sorry to see is an application that comes in that's really has got a great project, but they just kind of missed the mark somewhere, and they missed the mark because they didn't talk to somebody. And it just breaks you could talk to anybody about it. It just breaks our hearts. Please, we are so accessible. My telephone number is here at the end of my contact information. Program officers across the federal government are really, really accessible. We want to help you, and we urge you to contact us. As I said, know the review process. Talk with your program officers about the review process. Again, talk to colleagues, get some perspective from your colleagues. Many of our programs you can submit drafts to, and we urge you to do that. If you get turned down, get comments and reapply. There is no shame in getting turned down. In fact, most people that apply to the programs do get turned down, so don't feel ashamed of it. And here are some resources for you. The website, look at the guidelines. There are sample narratives for all of our grant programs. We have a funded projects database where you can find out what other people may have done that is similar to what you're trying to do. We have feature articles on our home pages. Talk to program officers, submit drafts, register on grants.gov, and come talk to us at the exhibit hall. Thank you.
All right, I'm Colleen Fitzgerald, and I'm the Program Director for Documenting Endangered Languages program at NSF. And as Mary mentioned, this is a joint funding initiative between NSF and NEH, and grants are submitted to NSF for review. Sorry, I'm just wanting to do my little clock. The base Dell budget, in my hands, $2.3 million. Very, very little. The solicitation actually says you can ask for up to $150K a year, $450K total, but in actuality, if you look at the abstracts on Fastlane of the awards, it is extraordinarily rare anyone gets over $299,000, $300,000. So a $450,000 grant would be a quarter of my budget. So I want to try and spread the wealth. But luckily, we have these partnerships with NEH. We have SIZE, the computational engineering people at NSF. We have this great relationship with the Education Human Resources Directorate, which tribal colleges, and she has a lot more money than I do. Arctic Social Sciences has also been a great funder for our Dell projects. Oh, I need to make my obligatory, Dell does not fund language revitalization. I will just tell you, I do a lot of work in language revitalization. I think I'm known as being very community-oriented, but we have a solicitation, and that's important to keep in mind. But there are ways you can do twofers, right? You can do something that's a documentation project that has revitalization as a byproduct. We have an NSF page on this link, but I have a handout back there, and if you didn't get one, I have more at my seat, and I'll be here tomorrow with more handouts. And it's got links to all kinds of resources that I'll be talking about here. The Dell program has 3 areas of emphasis: language description, so this would be field work, working with speakers, recording speakers; documentation, preparing dictionaries, grammars, databases. We've got infrastructure grants, so digitization and creation of access to documentary materials, workshops, conferences, and then we have the computational methods strand. And typically, I think the ones that go in through that strand are computational linguists at universities, but certainly if there was an interest in doing this, and we would love to see something from a community pairing. We have a number of different proposal types. So we have these senior research proposals, the standard grants. Through Dell, we do the NEH fellowships. So they come in through us, they get reviewed by our people, and then at panel, NEH chooses the ones and the competitive high rankings that get funded. Dissertation improvement grants. So if any of you are graduate students, this is a really great source of funding. Conferences, workshops, training. So Aldi had a workshop a few years ago funded by NSF, a conference funded by NSF, Colleen, if you've heard people mention that, funded by NSF. So lots of things, National Breath of Life, funded by NSF. We have rapid research grants. We just did one for research in the Himalayan context for a researcher doing work with Nepali endangered languages in response to the earthquake. And we have eager. I don't think Dell uses these two mechanisms very much, and if you were going to think about them, you should talk to me first. And then if you're at a university, research experiences for undergraduates or having a component that is an undergraduate research component, that is something I'm very committed to, and we also have these REGs where it's for graduate students. Basically, you write your proposal, your institution submits it. Dell fellowships can be awarded to unaffiliated individuals, and Dell fellowships have gone to people without PhDs. So we've had a number of those, and particularly Native Americans working on their own language. Jessie Little-Dobert, she was a Dell fellowship, MacArthur Genius Award winner, Wampanoag Language Revitalization. So basically, you submit it Tuesday, September 15th, and it's probably with us around 6 months. I'm actually encouraged, all program officers are encouraged to have a decision and move it forward within 6 months. It's actually, when it comes in, I actually have a little thing that tells me what your 6-month date is. We check the proposal to make sure it's meeting compliance. There's a lot of things in the GPG, the Grants Proposal Guide, and you need to follow those copious instructions, and there's things in the Dell solicitation. Some proposals don't go outside to external reviewers, but that's less common. Usually we have ad hoc reviews, and that's when I email someone in the discipline, and usually, almost always, the reviewers have a PhD in linguistics, anthropology, or a related field. So I send it out. If I'm lucky, people say they will review it. I send them a summary, and then they write a review, and they use the criteria in the solicitation, in the GPG, to assess the merit of that proposal. GPG, Grants Proposal Guide. GPG. Sorry. I'm new to NSF and this alphabet soup thing over here in DC, so. And then we have panel. So what we have is a number of people who come together, and each person is responsible for a certain number of proposals, reading and reviewing them, and leading the group discussion. And what happens is proposals get ranked. And so what that means is we have the big picture look for all the panel of what's in the batch of proposals. Do we rank it competitive high, competitive medium, competitive low, or decline, not competitive but revision encouraged? So we get to see all these things together, the big picture of that year's proposals, and rank them. And then the program officer makes decisions and recommendations. And then we have things go through, then my director boss approves, and the grants and audits people look at things. So, and then you would actually get the funding. It's very competitive, 20 to 24% acceptance rate. I mentioned that about the solicitation amount, but there are many proposals every year that are ranked very high, that are very competitive, and panel recommended strongly that we fund them, that do not get funded. And my little NSF fact, principal investigators submit on average 2.3 proposals for every award they receive. And so people submit a lot. You have to face a lot of failure to have the risk of success. The review criteria are just fundamental to this whole process. Just always remember that science is in the National Science Foundation name. And so people are reviewing this looking for the intellectual merit, importance of the work, the qualifications of the team to do the work, originality, is it transformative, how is the project organized, the timeline and the resources and access to resources. And then we have the broader impacts, which is the second merit review criteria. Is there training? Is there mentoring? Infrastructure? Dissemination and public awareness? Is there broadening participation? Is the project going to, for example, train Native Americans who are underrepresented in science to acquire skills to do language documentation? And general societal benefits. So I wanted to talk about one last thing, which is the data management plan. And the big thing is, if you are recording and collecting data, it needs to be accessible because it's being paid for by federal funds. And it needs to be in perhaps a Delamon, what does Delamon stand for, Gary? There are standards for archiving, and it is key, and that is part of your proposal that gets reviewed. So like I said, I have a lot of things, but they're all these little notes are on my handout right there, and I'm around for the next 2 days, happy to talk. I'm done with time.
Good morning. My name is Carlos Martinez. I'm the Division Director for Discretionary Grants in the Office of English Language Acquisition at the U.S. Department of Education. It's quite a mouthful. It's almost a resume. Previous to coming to the department, I was an Assistant Secretary of Education in New Mexico. I'm going to talk to you about our Native American and Alaska Native Children in School Act and the program that supports that act. It is not a Native Language Revitalization, Restoration, or Documentation Act. It is an education program. And since it's part of the Elementary Secondary Education Act, its first focus, our first mission, is the acquisition of English. And that was written into law in 2001 under the No Child Left Behind Act. So it is bound by that requirement. But the law also allows that the teaching of English be supported by teaching the native language. And so the focus easily changed to native languages. Currently, we have 25, and I just hate this acronym, I wish I could change it, NAM grantees, Native American and Alaska Native children in school. I should also mention that the act also includes Native Hawaiians, but I guess the title of the act would be too long for the Federal Register. But we have funded programs in Hawaii and to teach children in Native Hawaiian. We have 13 grantees that applied in 2011, and these are 5-year grants, so their grant is winding down. And we have 12 in 2013, and they'll be winding down in 2018. So we are currently working on a recompetition of the act. And to give you a little bit more background, in the last competition, we funded about half of the applicants. and there was a natural cut point in the ranking of points. The applications are peer-reviewed, and there'll be an alert very soon through many channels asking for reviewers. We accept not only educators, but people who work in community organizations and people who work in documentation of languages as well. Most of the grantees are in tribal schools in 2011. And in 2012, there was an equal number of LEAs, which are local education agency, and tribal schools. The grant serves a range of grades from early childhood, actually from birth, to grade 12. I should also read to you what is the legal purpose of the grant, and that is to develop high levels of proficiency in academic attainment in English, and to promote parental community participation in language instruction. These projects can accomplish this by teacher training, curriculum development, and evaluation and assessment to support the goals of student instruction and parental community participation. It could go from preschool or birth all the way to post-secondary levels, or any combination of these levels, and may support teaching and learning and study of Native American languages. But all programs must include in their objective an increase in English proficiency for participating students. There are competitive priority areas that are addressed in these competitions. And one of them was post-secondary success, which was the most common area in 2011. And in 2013, data-based decision-making and parental involvement were the most common priority areas. 17 of our programs serve children in early learning, that is birth to grade 3. And I think the most important thing, from my point of view, and probably for this audience, is that 23 Native American languages are represented by our grantees. This gives you an idea of where our grantees come from. You can see that local education agencies and public schools are a big grantee type, and that tribal entities, including tribal colleges, we fund 2 tribal colleges and their programs, are another a source of our applicants. That gives you an idea of where the priority areas are and how they shifted. Now, in the latest cohort, 83% of our grantees address native languages. These are the languages that are addressed by our program. There are 23, but the count changes, unfortunately, because let's say the person at the school that was the expert in the language moved, or was no longer available to teach. We also included, and not in the 23 count, is French and Spanish. We discovered that some grantees had an affinity for teaching Spanish and French as part of their heritage, as well as their native language. You will notice a lot of languages from Alaska, and my favorite program is one that teaches in Yupik, trains grandparents and village elders to become storytellers and to pass on the language to the next generation of children. And it includes their work as daycare providers and first teachers of Yupik. That is all I have in describing the program. I have also another program that might be of interest to you. Let me give you some statistics on the Native American program. The range of funding awards is from $150,000 to $300,000 per year, and it's a 5-year grant. The eligible entities are local school districts, public schools, charter schools, Indian tribes, tribally sanctioned educational authorities, Native Hawaiian or Native American Pacific Islander educational organizations. Another program we have is the National Professional Development Grant that trains teachers. The only eligible entities there are institutes of higher education. We would love to see tribal colleges apply for those to prepare teachers to teach in native languages. Thank you all very much, and have a great day.
Hello, my name is Judith Andrews. I'm the Collections Program Assistant for Recovering Voices program at the National Museum of Natural History. My work focuses on working with the communities in the collections and archives, namely the Community Research Grant Program, which is what I'll be talking to you about today. Recovering Voices is an initiative of the Smithsonian. We collaborate between 3 units of the Smithsonian: the National Museum of Natural History, the National Museum of the American Indian, and the Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage. And my work is based in our program office at the National Museum of Natural History. Recovering Voices collaborates with communities and other institutions to address issues of Indigenous language and knowledge diversity and sustainability. We seek to understand the dynamics of intergenerational knowledge transfer and to support the efforts of communities that focus on language and knowledge revitalization and sustainability. Recovering Voices at the National Museum of Natural History, we do a variety of activities. The National Breath of Life Archival Institute for Indigenous Languages is a 2-week workshop held every other summer designed to improve the use of archival records for language revitalization work by teaching linguistics and pairing the community scholars with linguistic partners, as Colleen mentioned. Thank you very much. We have appreciated being supported by Dell in the past. We just had the 2015 Breath of Life in June. And we co-organized that with the Miamia Center at Miami University. So you can learn more about Breath of Life at session 203 at 2 p.m. today, just saying. Other activities of Recovering Voices are listed below. And now on to the funding program that I will talk to you about today, the Community Research Grants. Community research grants support Indigenous communities' efforts to revitalize their languages, cultures, and knowledge systems. We do this by granting funds for travel to Washington, D.C. to access the Smithsonian's collections and archives. We encourage community groups to be intergenerational and to include a variety of people. You could include scholars, artists, knowledge specialists. The grant is meant to fund the work that you're doing in your community. This is our only program that grants funds, and it's important to note that these grants come from a private endowment, not from federally appropriated funds. This endowment currently allows us to support 3 community grants per calendar year. The maximum grant amount is $10,000, and it is used to fund the community research visit to the Smithsonian's Collections or Archives here in DC, which is a much smaller program than what you've heard previously. We open the call for proposals once a year for research visits to occur the following calendar year. The current call closes next week on September 15th, so I do encourage all of you to look at our application materials and possibly to apply next year's call, which will open July 15th in 2016. You can find all of our application materials on our website, recoveringvoices.si.edu. We also offer many supplemental materials that include budget and collections information to hopefully make the process of applying easier and to help put together the proposal. Eligibility for us is not confined to North American tribes. Our collections represent Indigenous communities from all over the world, and so all are eligible to submit proposals as long as the Smithsonian holds the collections and archives to support the research. Recovering Voices believes that language and traditional knowledge are intertwined, so we encourage research proposals that focus on either. You could be working towards language revitalization or researching knowledge or material culture. Both types of projects are eligible. So what can the grant cover? It can pay for travel to and from DC, lodging in DC, meals, and some research resources. Since Recovering Voices is a Smithsonian program, we do adhere to travel and lodging at the GSA required numbers. But we give you those in the supplemental materials. So it's not a question of what are those numbers that you need to use. We do not limit the length of this visit nor the size of the group. The applicant determines those by how you would like to work the budget. And the grant can pay for research within any of the Smithsonian's repositories. The most utilized so far have been the National Museum of Natural History's anthropology collections, the National Anthropological Archives, and the National Museum of the American Indians object collections. Of course, there are things the grant cannot fund. Our focus is to make the Smithsonian collections more accessible, so the grants cannot fund primary linguistic documentation or research in the field. We are working on digitizing materials already at the National Anthropological Archives, so we do not fund digitization-only projects through this grant. Scholars doing individual research are not funded. It must be a community project. This doesn't mean that non-tribal museum professionals or scholars cannot be a part of your project, but the community must be involved and there must be a real benefit to the community. Consultations of collections is a prerequisite for the proposal. You must know what we have to be able to know what to propose for research. I'm always surprised to see proposals that just want to come to DC to see what we have. And we can do that digitally, giving you a complete list of everything that we hold that might be relevant to your heritage. So we can't fund just come to DC and see what there is. There needs to be a research goal in mind. The grant cannot pay for the purchase of technology, such as computers or audiovisual equipment. And finally, it cannot pay for salaries or stipends. But once a proposal is funded, Recovering Voices provides extra work. We provide logistical support. We book the hotel and flight arrangements for the group stay. We'll also work with the collections and archives staff to book your research appointments for the group and coordinate the various days of the visit. During the visit, the group works directly with collections and archives staff and curators who can assist the group in getting the most out of your research visit to the Smithsonian. One very unique feature is that Recovering Voices offers to video record the research visit. This allows the group to focus on discovering and discussing information without worrying about who's taking notes and did we catch that. I need to go back and look at that because I didn't take a photo, but we have it on video for you. All video is shared with the community to be used by the community. Some have used it as a starting point for educational videos, for youth programming. Others plan to use it as part of a new exhibit in their Heritage Center, and some have chosen simply to keep it as reference material. I've listed here some of the past funded projects, so you can see that it's groups from all over, not from just the United States. We have some groups from Canada, and it's a wide range of everything from language to educational materials to technology. I'll end with my contact information, or all our Recovering Voices contact information. We'll be presenting a poster today, so you can always stop by at 3:45, come talk to us if your questions don't get answered in this panel. And thank you very much. Visit our website, recoveringvoices.si.edu.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lillian Sparks Robinson, and I'm the Commissioner for Administration for Native Americans and a member of the Rosebud Sioux Tribe. And I just wanted to thank ATALM, I'll just say the acronym, but for having me here to talk a little bit about ANA's funding, because I understand there are lots of questions about, what does ANA fund, who do we fund, and what exactly is the process? And so I'd like to go over that briefly for you guys, and I guess if there's questions to do Q&A at the end. So ANA is the Administration for Native Americans, and we're located at the Department of Health and Human Services. And we have an annual appropriations of $50 million, and I heard someone earlier say they only had $146 million, and I have to tell you, that's almost 3 times the amount of money that we receive to provide funding in the areas of social and economic development, native languages, and environmental regulatory enhancement. And through ANA, our authorizing statute is the Native American Programs Act, and that we also provide the funding that describes the programs under the Native American Languages Act. We have several different grants competitions. And so under economic development, we have 4 separate competitions for social and economic development strategies, sustainable employment and economic development strategies, our Native American Assets Building Initiative, which focuses on IDA accounts, and then we have a very special SEDS Alaska, which is specific to Alaska economic development activities. Under our language programming, we have currently 2 competitions, and then for the next fiscal year, we're hoping to have 3. But our current 2 competitions are our language preservation and maintenance grants and our Esther Martinez immersion. So preservation and maintenance allows for a lot of the activities that I heard about yesterday, as well as when I go out and I visit with folks about the language programming that they do. But it allows for community-based programming. It allows for curriculum development, for master apprentice learning styles, for teacher development, for transcription, for developing web-based or app-based materials. It really has a really broad category with regards to the types of language activities that can be done. Under our Esther Martinez immersion, that really focuses on immersion activities in an educational school-based setting. We have survival schools, which are for kids 8 and older, and the school has to be, I believe, in existence for 3 years, and there's a minimum number of hours of instruction that has to be done in the native language, which is 500, and then there also has to be, I believe, a minimum of 10 kids participating in the program. For the language nests, those are for kids ages 7 and under, and we have the same hour instruction, minimum of 500 hours provided in the native language of 500 hours. And so those are the 2 differences between our 2 programs. And like I said, the immersion is a little bit more prescriptive, and it is a 3-year program where our preservation and maintenance can be anywhere from 12 months to 3 years. And so what we're really excited about in the President's current budget proposal is an increase of $3.5 million, which brings us to $50 million, as I mentioned earlier. That is really, the increase really focused on a Native language demonstration program, as well as a Native youth resiliency type of program. But our Native language demonstration program will allow for communities that have an early childhood setting, whether that's a Head Start or a child care program or a tribally run early childhood center, as well as a relationship with a tribal college and university or a satellite campus of a community college or another institution of higher learning, as well as a K through 8 or K through 12 school system that they are working closely with. And the purpose of our demonstration program is to really allow communities to help identify and fill in the gaps when there is a missing component or piece in the continuum of education. Ideally, a parent, and what this is hoping to do is ideally will allow a parent to say, you know, my kid is entering an early learning education system now, but I want them to receive the instruction all in their native language. And then when they graduate from that preschool and they go to kindergarten, that parent has the option of enrolling their child in a school setting that, again, is fully immersion, allows for the child to receive their entire education in the native language. And then when the student graduates high school, that student has an opportunity to elect to attend an institution of higher learning, also receiving their education and instruction in their native language. And there are quite a few communities, a handful, but enough, that are right on that cusp, but they just don't have the funding or the capacity to do what some of the planning that's needed to help fill in those gaps, or even identify what those missing pieces are, to help bridge the transitions between the early childhood to the K-8 system to the higher ed system. And it really don't have the time to focus on making that happen. And so we're hoping under this demonstration project that we'll be able to fund 5 to 8 communities for up to 5 years to really spend the time necessary to begin thinking about what does that look like. And we also plan on providing training and technical assistance that's extensive to those communities that actually receive the funding, and that we're hoping to also be able to build an evidence base that we'll be able to share with other folks to say, this is why native language is important, this is why we need to support this in our educational systems, and this is what the results and benefits are. And so we're really excited about this demonstration project and looking for feedback. In fact, we're having tribal consultation on this and a number of things on Monday. So if you have your thoughts, please share them with us as we're interested in making sure that we design this competition correctly. So I mentioned training and technical assistance. So for ANA, that's a huge part of what we do. We just don't provide funding in the areas that I had mentioned, but we also do a lot of training and technical assistance even prior to folks receiving their award. We provide training and technical assistance in our 4 regions, and our regions are divided into Alaska, the Pacific, because Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders are eligible groups to receive funding under ANA. The Eastern, which really includes all the way until the western border of South and North Dakota, and then Western, which includes everything west of that border. And so those are the 4 regions for ANA. And the training and technical assistance we provide, the sessions are, one, are project planning and development. That session is really designed for a community that is saying, you know, I have a really good idea. We know what we want. We know that native language has been identified as a priority for us. We know that we have, you know, some curriculum developed, but we all know that there's some things that need to be done. We know that we want to be able to develop a program, and we have a few things in place, but we really aren't sure how to implement this. That's a great training for a community that is in that position to attend. Because from there, you'll learn what are the tools necessary to fully develop your idea or your concept, and how to actually turn that into a fundable proposal, not just to ANA, but one that we hope you could shop to federal and private sources of funding. And then we have our pre-application training, and the pre-application training takes place when we have what we call our funding opportunity announcements out on the street. So when our competition opens, we then have our pre-application training in the regions, and pre-app really helps you turn what you developed at the PPD, which by now should be a really good, solid proposal, and turn that into an ANA proposal. And it helps you understand what do we mean by the 424 and the Form 425A, and what does the budget look like, and really helps you develop the technical and the federal pieces, so that when you turn that in, we don't have to say, I'm sorry, but you were missing 1, 2, 3, or X, Y, Z. And then after we make our awards, we provide training and technical assistance to our it was called post-award. So that way we help keep you on track. You design the objectives, you design the approach, the implementation, the budget, the impact that you intend to have, and we help you meet those targets. We help you make sure you're staying on the timeline you've developed, and we really aim to help make sure that you are as successful as possible. I always say ANA is probably the best place to work for in terms of giving out grants, because we don't have a bunch of regs or standards that we have to go around and monitor and ding people for. But more so, we're able to give funding and then say, now what else do you need to make this work for you? But it's very competitive. It is very competitive to receive ANA funding. As I mentioned, we do have our funding opportunity announcement out for 45 to 60 days, ideally 60 days, but sometimes just because it takes forever to get that approved on our end, it's cut down to 45. But we hope we make up through the training and technical assistance that's provided during that time. And then once we receive the applications, they're peer panel reviewed. And so that's required through our statute, which means folks like you are solicited and selected as reviewers, and it's all done remotely over about a 2.5 week period. And then we receive the summaries, and we receive the comments, and we receive the scores, and then we rank the applications. And then from there, we do an internal review process, and essentially I fund until I can't fund. And so my time is up, but I have some really important things that I want to share with you, because I think it's important to be able to be a successful ANA applicant. And one is, like I said, it's very competitive. We typically get 320 to 365 applications a year. About a third of those are the language programs. For FY13, we received 108 applications, and we were able to fund 19. For FY14, we received 113 language applications, and this is combining the preservation and maintenance and ME, and we were only able to fund 21. And so for this year, we were able to fund 17 new projects, so we have a total of 39 language projects now, including the immersion and the preservation and maintenance, for a total of $12.5 million that we provide funding for. And our awards range from $50,000 to $300,000, and they go anywhere from 12 months to 36 months with Emmy at a number of 36 months. And so if you're interested in learning more, I encourage you to visit our website, which can, and I hate to say this, but this is how I find every website, is you just Google Administration for Native Americans. That's what I do to get to our website, and it'll take you right there. And it'll also help direct you to your regional training and technical assistance centers. We are anticipating that our FOAs will be out hopefully December. If not December, then of course very early next year. So if you have ideas, if you have thoughts about what you'd like to fund, please go on our website and find out when the next training and technical assistance session is for you. Thank you.
I'm not very tech savvy. Hi, good morning. I'm David Banks, and I'm from the National Park Service. How many of you have seen Keepers of the Treasures? No one? No one. Oh my gosh. Anyway, that's what started our programs at the National Park Service. And I suggest, it's online, and I suggest getting a copy because it actually took, we basically do historic preservation, which is not necessarily languages, but our original grant program funded a good number of language grants, projects. And the Keepers of the Treasures took preservation, well, it's a report on preservation needs in the Native American community or Indian country. And it basically expanded our view of what historic preservation is. And so we had a grant program, and our title is long, Historic Preservation Fund grants to Indian tribes, Alaska Natives, and Native Hawaiian organizations. But our main thrust of our program are block grants to the states and to what we call tribal historic preservation offices. How many do you know if you're a THIPO or not? If your tribe is a THIPO? Okay. Get to know your THIPOs. Find out if your tribe is a THIPO. Work with them. They'll know our programs inside and out. We have a variety of competitive grants, tribal heritage grants. These other grants, some of them are not funded, some of them are. If you want more information, please get in contact with me. But the underrepresented communities at the bottom, that's open to Indian country, as are the American Battlefield Protection Planning grants, as are the National Center for Historic Preservation Technology and Training grants, and Save America's Treasures and Preserve America. They were both open to tribes. Our program originated back in 1989. Basically, the Navajo went to Congress to ask for money to do some preservation work. Congress gave us $500,000 and asked us to do the Keepers of the Treasures report. We had several meetings across the country. The author, Pat Parker, compiled this. And again, the impact of it was there was an organization that started called Keepers of the Treasures that has morphed into a national organization called NAFPO, which is basically an association of THIPOs, Tribal Historic Preservation Officers. And the first year, we gave away $500,000, and many of those projects were language-based. And here's our website. Who is eligible? Again, federally recognized Indian tribes, Alaska Native groups, and Native Hawaiian organizations. These are the various categories that we fund. The two in red are the more important ones for language projects, or, well, projects that have language components. What we don't fund here, the most important point here is the technical stuff. Indirect costs above 25, we don't fund salaries, and delinquent grantees. And this is basically every spring, they're due, they get awarded late in summer. These are some of the major requirements. They're very small grants. You can ask as little as $5,000 up to $40,000. One of the categories, which is actually preservation of a particular building, you can ask up to $60,000. And again, this is our main website where you can get all the information about the grant program. Some examples. Back in 1992, we funded the Kurok Tribe of California, their project, the Kurok Language Preservation Project. Produced edited videotapes of Kurok language instructions in 3 public schools. Produced a videotape of language instruction techniques. Videotaped the cultural activities of 3 tribally sponsored language immersion camps for Kurok children and their families, where traditional skills, including basketry, fishing techniques would be taught. Now, after ANA came into existence with the language program, we cut off language projects. There was another source. But that doesn't mean we don't fund projects that have language components. For example, the Cherokee Nation back in 2010. I'm just going to read you, I can't read their language, so funding will be used to document elders who are fluent in the Cherokee's native language, explaining and sharing lifeways, traditions, and culture to the tribal youth. This will establish a process and methodology for additional projects. In 2006, Bays Mill Indian Community, educating students on cultural traditions. They used funds to educate over 10,000 students from schools chartered by Bays Mill Community College and located throughout Michigan on Ojibwe culture, language, traditions, and history. So I brought also a few cards. If you're interested, please get back to me and talk to me. Again, David Banks. I'm not in the written program, but it's really easy for the Park Service, anyone at the Park Service, first name, underscore, last name, @mps.gov. Thank you.
Sorry, the podium is a bit high and I can't see people on the other side of the road, so please excuse me for being so petite. My name is Sandra Narva, and I'm a senior program officer at the Institute of Museum and Library Services, where we administer for those that don't know about us, we are probably the smallest federal agency up here that is talking to you today. We are a very small, independent federal agency, and we basically support the good work that museums and libraries do around the country. For the most part, the majority of our funding goes to grants. For the most part, they are library grants that go to the Grants to States program in libraries. We also have our competitive grant programs for libraries, as well as the Office of Museum Services. I'm a program officer in the Office of Museum Services, but I will be addressing all of our grant programs today. So I'll get into the grant programs. I will make this extremely brief. We do have a full 75-minute session this afternoon at 2, specifically on IMLS grants, so please feel free to join us. And once again, everything I'm talking about is also available online. Everything is available at www.imls.gov. We just launched a new website yesterday, and I haven't seen how it is, so hopefully all the information is there. If not, it will be up shortly. I will talk very briefly about Office of Library Services grants. Once again, before talking about all of these programs, I should say that none of our programs are specifically about language preservation, language documentation, or the like. They can be components of a project, or if it fits in with our the call for that grant, it would be perfectly fine to have a language program. We have funded quite a few in the library side and also on the museum side. But there are 3 programs that I'd like to talk about very briefly on the library side. One are enhancement grants in the Office of Library Services and the Native American Library Services, also the Native Hawaiian Library Services, and the National Leadership Grants for libraries. So the Native American Grants for Library Services enhancement grants. These are a competitive grant program of up to $150,000 with no cost sharing required. Typically, IMLS grants require one non-federal dollar for every federal dollar that you receive, not for this program. You do need to have certain eligibility. These go out only to federally recognized tribes and Alaskan Native villages and corporations. It should also be noted that in order to apply for this program, you need to have a basic grant. Basic grants are not competitive, and granted, you do have to follow the application process and receive a basic grant, and then you can apply for a competitive grant that goes through once again, a peer review process, and our deadline for this program is March 1st of next year. Same thing goes for the Native Hawaiian Library Services. You do not need a basic grant for these, but they go up to $150,000 for up to a 2-year project. Once again, the eligibility criteria is only for nonprofit organizations that primarily serve and represent Native Hawaiians. So once again, these you can see the program goals and the types of projects that are funded really is up to the applicant organization if they fit our program goals. And then one of our larger programs is National Leadership Grants for Libraries. Those awards go up to $2 million on the library side. And it does require cost sharing if you have a grant of up to over $250,000. They are extremely competitive. They do go through a peer review process, and they are open to anyone who fulfills the eligibility criteria, which could be libraries or other nonprofits, in addition to tribes. So this is not a specific grant program for federally recognized tribes. I should note that ATALM, this conference, is actually is funded through both a Laura Bush 21st Century Library Professionals Grant, as well as they have a grant now through the National Leadership Grant Program. So these are the kinds of projects that are funded. They need to have large national prominence and really kind of change the field. So it's not about an individual organization, but it's about multiple organizations. And it could be if you're coming up with a process or kind of a multiple organizational project that you're working on a specific language project that other people can then go and apply, or it affects the entire field, that's where you come for funding. Now we'll go very briefly into the Office of Museum Services, where I'm a program officer. I administer the Native American, Native Hawaiian Museum Services Grant Program. Unlike other people in this room, we have a deadline that is actually reachable of December 1st of this year. It's not next week. And I certainly encourage everyone to apply. Other people call things guidelines or other, I've forgotten what NSF calls them. For us, it is called a Notice of Funding Opportunities. So our NOFOs will be up very, very soon. Look for them on our website. And this program is for up to $50,000 a year with no cost sharing required. You do need to fulfill the eligibility criteria of being a federally recognized tribe, Native Alaskan village or corporation, or a nonprofit organization that primarily serves and represents Native Hawaiians. So the door is fairly wide open on these awards. The only thing that the criteria and the program goal is that you need to support museum services of the tribe. That means you could be doing language programming. That's great. Maybe a language publication. Maybe you want to have a component online. Maybe you want to do some outreach within the community, work with Head Start. You can do all of these things. I would just encourage you to go and look at that program. Also, a larger program that we have in the Office of Museum Services called Museums for America. We have several tiers of funding. It goes up to $150,000. And then we require a one-to-one non-federal cost share. But if you apply up to $25,000, no cost sharing is required. The goal of Museums for America is really to assist a museum in helping meet their goals and better serve their community. But you do need to meet museum eligibility criteria. And they're very, very specific. They are listed online, and I highly encourage you to go and look at them if you have a museum. If you don't have a museum, you can apply for the Native American, Native Hawaiian Museum Services Grant Program to do museum activities for the tribe, even if you may not have a brick and mortar museum per se. And then last but not least, the National Leadership Grants for Museums. It's equivalent to the library side of National Leadership Grants. And actually the award is higher than that. I'm not sure why I put it $150,000. But once again, these need to be large projects that affect a larger audience rather than your own institution. And it has very specific eligibility criteria. Once again, I encourage you to look at those. This is my contact information. Please write it down. As it was said earlier, all program officers are more than happy to talk about the programs that they have within their agencies. As we are at IMLS, there are quite a few of us here over the next 2 days. Feel free to go and talk to any one of us about our programs. Okay, so without further ado, hopefully we have a little bit of time left for some questions from the audience. So, anybody have questions? Surely after so many speakers, yes, exactly. Oh, actually, could all the speakers come up? It might be easier.
Each repository has its own search, but the easiest way to start is collections.saga.edu. That's our cross search. It pulls from multiple databases, but also on our website, in the application materials, I have a supplemental that is about all the individual repositories with separate links. So in our application materials on recoveringvoices.si.edu, or you can start with the collections.si.edu.
I want to add something, which is a Recovering Voices kind of grant, a small grant to do work on some language work, could provide a great sort of pilot project to apply for something larger. And actually, it shows you were able to take money. You were able to take money, accomplish something. You can tell us in the grant application what you did, and now where you're heading. And so small grants are amazing. So really, really use them to accomplish things and then parlay that into something else.
Yeah, we do love for our collection, for our community research grants, to be a part of larger projects. So if you have like a 7-year plan or something, you know, if we are a step on the way, we love to see that. For Recovering Voices.
And I would say that the Documenting Endangered Languages program, you can work on collections that are at any institution. So it's just a matter of finding out what the collections are. And even if the collections are in the Smithsonian, you can apply to the Documenting Endangered Languages program to work on materials as long as it adheres to the general guidelines for undertaking documentation work.
This is not my agency. It's not a federal agency, but the Endangered Languages Fund, which is online at that website, they have 2 sets of endowments for endangered language funding, and communities get them. Terry Kinsey right there is representing Sauk Language Department. Their Native Voices endowment came out of the bicentennial and is for tribes, Lewis and Clark, and so are for tribes that were along their path. And so a lot of people have been able to parlay that in for their projects. And then $3,000 or so grants from Foundation for Endangered Languages, which has OGMIOS as their thing. And I think their deadline's in October maybe. But those are a couple of more small grants that you could do. And American Philosophical Society, Ray Wate was able to get one of those to work on Kauia. So there's a lot of little resources out there.
original source of what program did it come from? Humanities initiatives. Humanities initiatives at tribal colleges.
Language database and creating children's books. We're doing UPAC, and I received the request from Lakota language families. So looking at, okay, so we've developed this resource, how can I spread it? I want to spread it. What organizations might help me fund this?
Do you want
Sandra.
book subvention funds?
Oh, no, well, just,
It sounds development of resources.
yeah, development of resource. Basically, yeah. But I mean, it lives in a lot of camps because it's kind of a weird little problem.
So there are two programs to look at NEH, continuing support from humanities initiatives at tribal colleges. It sounds as if that would still allow you to develop the resources.
I'm partnering with a daycare.
That sounds like you should be talking with,
So, but as an individual, or the tribal college is doing this? Because we don't fund individuals.
Tribal college.
Okay.
I'm like a librarian, so I'm not a linguist. I'm not faculty.
I mean, the tribal college would just have to come in as the applicant and tell us what the approach is and what the design is and who the staff is and how they plan to do it. Yeah, that's fine. Yes.
Because you're really competitive.
Yes.
Do I want to apply from North Dakota, South Dakota?
No, you want to apply from, it doesn't matter because they all compete against each other. But what you want to do is talk with 3-Star Enterprises, so they are Alaska specific, and we can get you that information. I have your card. Yeah.
It's also competitive, so if we can pull in other groups, we won't all be fighting over the same cause.
Right, and that's important. That's very important to note, because if they're all asking for the same money project to do the same money for do the same project, that won't work. Yeah. Okay.
One more question.
Do you have any training programs for tribes to be able to open a FIPO office or?
Well, you're eligible to apply to build capacity. In other words, get training for somebody to become the FIPO, or we've even had tribes apply and brought somebody in because a number of tribes have cultural councils of some sort, just like a historic district would have a design review board. They sort of oversee what's going on in the tribe on cultural preservation, getting them training on Section 106, NAGRA, all sorts of other technical stuff. Yes, and that's one of the categories, training. But we won't pay someone's salary in regards to training. In other words, we're not going to pay their salary and then additionally pay for them to go to training. That's where the tribe has, yeah. And when we review most of our projects, match is not required, but encouraged. And when tribes commit certain resources, they get a better review. So.
I think we have time for one more question. We're running over, but we'll tie it up.
So I'm representing a newly state-recognized tribe in Texas, and they want to do a language preservation project. Do you guys work with non-federally recognized tribes?
ANA does. We work with non-recognized tribes. We work with federally recognized and state-recognized tribes, as well as Native nonprofit organizations. So, okay, great. Yep.
I have an answer, which is any organization can apply for a Dell grant. And we have funded research that related to state-recognized tribes. So UCHI, Mary Lynn actually, who was here, had work funding for a UCHI dictionary, I believe. So.
Yeah, and if it's in our collections, then yes.
You guys have pictures of ours, but I didn't find any actual artifacts.
Well, it could, if we have anything in archives as well.